going on, YouTube? How's everyone doing? I hope all is well, YouTubers. Anyway, I want to get down to the nitty and gritty of some Bible stories, particularly powerful women in the Bible. There's this one girl, her granddaughter ended up killing her own grandkids and all that stuff to remain power. But before that, I forgot her name. I think it was Jezebel. But Jezebel was the queen. I forgot how she even became the queen, but I think she killed her own husband, and she would do a lot of witchcraft and all that stuff. But you know what? The most brutal of her demise, like one of the most brutal biblical demises, was her. They straight because she killed the prophet and because she did a lot of things against God's will, and she would worship other deities and stuff like that. The men of God, you know what they did? They went to her castle when she was doing her makeup. Boom, she's doing her makeup. She's looking all fucking feed me, feed me, and fucking they straight threw her out the window, then stoned her and fucking had her get eaten by dogs. And then she had a granddaughter, I think, or a daughter that did not want to hand over her power when it was her kid's turn or her son's turn to become king or queen. She had them killed. And she also killed a lot of the prophets that were warning her. Anytime they were warned about anything disastrous happening to them, they'll end up killing them. Even with the prophet Elijah, he at one point in the story, he had to flee. I think it was Jerusalem or something like that. He had to flee because they wanted him dead, and he stayed in the cave. Didn't eat that well. God gave him bread when it was time to get bread. God gave him rest when it was time to rest. God gave him water when it was time to hydrate. And as he got older, he went to a village. They weren't Jewish, but there was a blind kid. A woman came up to him crying about her blind kid. And through the power of God, he made the kid become unblind. The kid's vision came back. And there's just like a lot of cool stories. I think I like Jonah too. Jonah was trying to flee away from God's will, trying to go the other way on the raft or the boat, whatever. Storm happened. The waves took him that way still. That's my motherfucking ramen noodles, nigga. Well, Crystal's hot sauce, literally. What? Hold on. Brown eyes just dropped a new hot sauce. But anywho, he got swallowed by a whale, and he lived in the well for like 3 days, and the well spit him out where he was supposed to go. And there's just, I think the Bible is really fascinating. I think if you're battling depression, the best Bible story to read is Job, the book of Job, whereas basically says that he was a man of God, he was perfect, and Satan comes up to God and is like, he's only worshiping you because you blessed him with all this cattle, with all these camels, with a wife, with kids. Anyway, the devil's like, God's like, go ahead, do what you want to Job, just don't hurt him yet. Well, he didn't say yet. Then he did what he wanted. He took his cattle, struck his kids dead, I think. And he was just getting bad news after bad news all at once. Everything was hitting him at once. And Job really was very self-pity. I think if you're battling depression, that's like one of the first books that's ever even like brought up depression. They didn't label it depression, but he was most definitely depressed. He when they told him all the bad news, he stripped butt ass naked and started just self-pitying himself. But he never was blasphemous. He never questioned God, he questioned himself. And a lot of people, they question God. I had that habit too, is just questioning God, why this, why me, and stuff like that. But I was also reading a book about the Bible. I guess like self-pity is a sin. Like you're not supposed to self-pity, because when you self-pity yourself, in a way, you are questioning God's will for you. And once I read that, I was like, damn, that's very true. That's why a lot of people are unhappy. If you had a more like a different mentality, then you would never be depressed. I went through a lot of shit as a person, and I didn't get depressed until I started hanging around certain people who were self pity, who dwelled in their own sorrows. And me trying to be a good friend, I stuck around, and it only affected me negatively. Even with Job, when he was depressed, his wife's questioning why he's still like worshiping God. He calls her a stupid woman, basically, a foolish woman. And there's like he had like five friends chilling with him, soaking with him, just trying to be there for him, but he was no good company. He was just too sad. At one point in the Bible, he got burned. He lets God let Satan fucking burn him. So he's all scabbed up, just sad, like what the fuck? Like imagine having everything, you're doing everything, then out of nowhere, because God let the devil fucking test him. Basically, what happened with God and the devil, they literally made a bet. They made a gamble. Satan was willing to put a bet, like, yo, I bet he won't fucking. Of course, he's a good person. Of course, he does this. Of course, he talks very highly of you when you give him everything. So God took everything from Job. Well, he let Satan. It wasn't God. It was Satan. Satan did all of it, but God allowed him to because he knew that Job was still was going to be a servant. And the word servant, we are all a servant to something. Servant means slave. We are, you can either be a slave to sin or you could be a slave to God's will. And hopefully you will inherit the kingdom of heaven. And we go through a lot of shit as humanity. A lot of people's morals compass ain't really all there anymore as how it was back in the day. But if you're a servant to God, you're a slave to God's will. From my experience, you tend to be more happier. You tend to get blessed in other forms. A lot of people think that God's will is having a lot of material or just being a perfect person. Well, that's really not the case. You receive certain blessings like discernment, joy, love, and just like purposeful things, like more fulfilling things. I think that's God's blessing. There's a singer, R&B singer, YOK Cyrus. I remember when he went live, and after he did his live, he kind of like got blackballed, and he started going through like a lot of humiliation rituals type things. But he said that like you guys pray for money, you pray for fame, and you pray for all this. That is not a blessing of God. It is the blessing of the devil. And all the fame and money does is feed your vanity. And vanity is like when you're a narcissist. Vanity is when you are a self-loving individual. You don't see no one higher above you but yourself. And I think that it could be a good thing, but there's to a point. Even like certain women, their vanity is pretty high because they spent hours in the mirror doing their makeup. They put down other people. They even have a mirror strictly for makeup that gets all angles, and it's called a vanity mirror. And society puts words, name certain things for a reason, for a purpose, because it all has a deeper meaning. Everything has a deeper meaning. And even if a person practices witchcraft,